You are listening to the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks.
Morning, Auburn family, and welcome back to Inside the Jungle, your source for Auburn men's basketball analysis and discussion on the E2C Network. Today, another W to talk about. I love continuing to say that in the intro of this podcast, continuing to talk about wins and W's for this Auburn basketball team as they improve to 24-2 on the season, 12-1 in Southeastern Conference play as they get a home victory over the Vanderbilt Commodores by the score of 94-80. And I'm going to talk all about this game and some of the players and plays in this game and kind of what's around the program. And today I'm on my own. Yeah, I haven't really done an alone podcast ever before, so this is new for me. So I'm just going to kind of treat this as like a good conversation, just to have and talk about this incredible basketball team and this incredible game from last night. I'm recording this well over 24 hours after the game has finished, so we've had a lot of time to look over the game, look over the stats, and that sort of thing. So first, I want to start off. I was there. It was an incredible atmosphere. A lot of people that normally go to those games, that go to all the games, said that it wasn't as loud. But for me, I sat up top in the corner, just beside the corner. I thought it was incredibly loud. I thought it was an incredible game, an incredible atmosphere, especially before it being an 8 o'clock tip against Vanderbilt on a Wednesday night. I mean, that's a special. My dad was texting me before I started recording. He said that is the Bruce Pearl effect right there, to have no empty seats in that arena with circumstances that we had there. We're going to talk a little bit about the game. I want to talk about first, look, Vandy jumped out to an 11-0 lead. And I was getting a little worried because we weren't hitting shots. Jabari missed his 2 first threes. We were turning the ball over. I think Allen had a turnover. We'll get to Allen here in a second. We'll get to Jabari here in a sec. But Vandy jumped out immediately. Bruce Pearl got a technical foul, and they were hitting free throws. And it was like, okay, now what are we going to do? We need to answer. What are we going to do? Who are we going to go to? And it went from 11-0 to 11-3 to 14-3. And then that was about as it wrote for Vanderbilt, because then all of a sudden it was 14-14 after an incredible run by Auburn to get back into the game. Foul trouble also ate this team alive, with Zapp immediately getting a foul trouble early, and that's not a matchup you want to see, with him getting a foul trouble with the opposing team point guard being the leading scorer in the SEC. And I'll get to Pippen here in a minute, but he had another incredible game, 29 points for the league leader in scoring right now. He's been incredible. But I was very excited about seeing the Honey Badger Zapp against him, but foul trouble early, especially him and even KD Johnson, not getting as many minutes as either of them are used to due to the foul trouble. With KD only got 23 minutes and Zapp only got 16. So a big thing for this game, we've seen the past few games, especially this past like 5 or so games, Auburn has struggled from behind the arc and from the free throw line. And we talked in the last podcast, Dad and I, we talked about how we're going to need a shooter. We just need a guy, because we're going to have to start hitting those threes, and we're going to have to start hitting shots from the free throw line. We're going to have to start hitting open shots and open looks that we're getting. They just weren't falling down. But you saw Auburn go into a little bit of slump. Boy, have they jumped out through it with this game last night. An incredible, incredible game from the three-point line, 11 of 22, 50%. And from the free throw line, Auburn goes 21 of 26, which is 81%, which is, as good as you can ask for right there. Look, huge, absolutely huge breakout type of game. And it all starts with the man, Jabari Smith. Talk about an absolute menace on the offensive end. 7 of 10 from 3, 10 of 16 from the field, grabbed 4 rebounds, had 31 points. The first Auburn freshman to score 30-plus points in a game since Tony Douglas in 2005. Wow. An incredible, incredible game from Jabari. He proved to the scouts that they were there to see him and not anybody else. But to take away from that, Walker also had an incredible basketball game, 22 points. 8 of 10 shooting, which is as efficient as you can. 80%, that's incredible. 7 rebounds and 7 blocks. And that stat line, 7 blocks and 7 rebounds with an absurd amount of points, has kind of become second nature to a guy like Walker Kessler. We've kind of expect that now, which is crazy. It's absolutely insane. And to have 2 guys like that in your front court, where your front court guys combine for 53 points compared to Vanderbilt's front court that combined for 13 points. That's the difference in the basketball. That's the difference in a win and a loss. That's the difference of being one of the top teams in the country and then not. Defensively, this team fought, even though foul trouble and the officials did not help. And I'll get to the officials here in a minute because I'm gonna go off on a few calls that they had there. But defense is ferocious when you play a team as offensively gifted as Vanderbilt, and especially as their point guard is as offensively gifted. And Scottie Pippen Jr. had 29 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds. He shot 16 free throws. He's an NBA player. He's an NBA player. He knows how to get to the line. He knows how to draw contact and draw fouls. And he showed it. But when you play a team like that, you hate giving up 80 points a game. But when you're scoring 94, you're scoring 94. You're going to win the game. We'll get back to Jabari and Walker here in just a second because those two had an incredible game. Those two have I think they've solidified themselves as both All-Americans. I think Walker has solidified himself for National Defensive Player of the Year. I think Jabari has given every single reason for NBA teams to consider him for the number 1 overall pick and the number 1 overall prospect. But let's talk about Wendell Green for just a second. Look, Wendell, another guy, and I know the slump of the shooting was team-wide, but Wendell, one of those that hadn't really had his shot recently in the past 3 or 4 games. It just seems like he hadn't been himself, especially from behind the arc. But Wendell played great today. 12 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. And that was so quiet after the big performances by Jabari. It felt like Walker was getting kind of shoved under the radar. That's another thing that my dad said. With all the crazy stuff going on with Jabari, it felt like Walker was getting second hand. But a guy like Wendell Green gets even third hand. He was 1 assist and 3 rebounds shy of a triple-double. That's an incredible game for Wendell Green. He goes 2 for 5 from the three-point line. That's 40%. That's all you can ask for a guy like that, shooting those long contested pull-up threes at his size. I'll take that. Great game for Wendell Green. Also had a tie for the team high in plus-minus of plus 25. Plus 25 in a game you win by 14 in the SEC. It's pretty good. That's pretty good. He was tied with Devin Cambridge with a plus 25. Unless the next closest on the plus minus to those two, they both had plus 25. The next closest is a tie between Jalen Williams and KD Johnson with plus 12. That's 13 less than Wendell and Devin. Great game from Wendell and Devin Cambridge. Look, Devin does the dirty work. He made a 3. Yes, I don't want him jacking threes, but he does the dirty work. He gets rebounds. He fights. He plays defense. He's taking charges. He's leading. He's an upperclassman on this team. One of the few upperclassmen on this group. He's experienced. That's a guy you're going to have out there. Great game from Devin as well. So I alluded to the foul trouble early in this game, especially early in this game with Zep and KD immediately getting into foul trouble. But I want to talk about the officials for just a quick second. 50 fouls were called in this game, a late game. 50 fouls. That's way too much, especially with the pro talent, incredible players on this floor from both teams. And it was bad both ways. You hit the 50 fouls and you had the technical on Bruce 2 minutes into the game. That's really poor from SEC officiating. There were some really ticky-tack calls. The one that I was probably most frustrated with the most, and I may just be blanking on some other ones that I was more frustrated with, but this is the one I'm thinking of right now. Jabari had the ball at the top of the key, and he swiped through and shot it, and they got the guy for swiping through, but they said he wasn't shooting, even though Jabari was clearly in his shooting motion when he was hit. And that takes away from 3 free throws from a star player. I don't understand any point of that call. It's the wrong call, and it doesn't do anything besides get that man a foul. And Vanderbilt was in some foul trouble as well. Wright for them had 4 fouls, and their big guy had 4 fouls as well. Extremely displeased with the officials. It was bad. It was very, very bad.
Hey Auburn fans, I want to take a quick timeout from this episode to bring your attention to something very special. Here at the E2C Network, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best content for Auburn fans out there. And best of all, it's free to you. But just because it's free doesn't mean there aren't costs, especially when you have a library of hundreds of podcasts, videos, blogs, and more. Many of you have reached out and asked how you can support this network in the past. Well, now I have your answer. It's called the E2C Network Booster Club over at patreon.com/E2C Network. There you'll find a membership monthly reward system where you can sign up for as little as $1 and get different perks at different tiers. Some of those perks include things such as apparel, eligibility to join us on future podcasts, recognition as an E2C Network booster, exclusive communications, and bonus content that is available nowhere else. If you love this network and want to help us keep producing podcasts like this one, please head on over to patreon.com/E2C Network to join the E2C Network Booster Club. You can also get there by going to our website, e2cnetwork.com/support. Whether you decide to join or not, we are still so appreciative that you would support us by just listening and being here, because each and every one of you is part of our E2C Network family. Well, that's it. Timeout's over. Let's get back into the episode.
Also want to put out a quote from Bruce after the game. Bruce talked about getting Jabari the ball, getting Jabari his shots, especially the past 2 weeks, especially in late game situations that we're going to need him in March. He said after the game about talking about the talent that he had in the past and what he's able to do with the talent now. But he said this: we were able to recruit guys that didn't have a lot of SEC offers, like Jared Harper, Bryce Brown, Anthony McLemore, Javon McCormick, not just to name those guys. Obviously, Austin Wiley was a very big get, but we won without any McDonald's All-Americans. After the Final Four, I think a lot of the 5-star kids said, wow, if that's what you can do with 3 and 4-star kids, imagine what you can do with a 5-star. That's why we got Jabari. That's why Walker came back. And so did really good 3 and 4 stars. And we were doing really well with 5 stars. I'm a lot better coach with good players. I could tell you that right now. Just like Bruce said, his ability to improve and mesh guys together, even with 3 and 4-star guys that weren't as highly recruited, that didn't have a lot of offers, like those guys he just named in that quote, he was still able to compete. He was still able to win big with those guys and mesh them together and make them really, really good college players. And some of them, into the pros, like Jared Harper. I mean, Chimo Kiki wasn't that big of a recruit. Here's a lottery pick. And then what about Isaac Okoro, who's a top 40 4-star? He turned him into a top 5 pick. He got guys like Bryce Brown, who hardly was recruited at all, and he's playing in the G League. So, I mean, guys like that, what his ability to do with that just shows his ability to do with a 5-star like Jabari Smith, former 5-star like Walker Kessler, guys like Wendell Green. He wasn't as highly recruited, but incredible talent. It just shows the kind of coach and the kind of recruiter, the kind of training and the freedom that it gives these players. Jabari said it. He just wants me to shoot my shot. And he said that's a huge reason why Jabari came to Auburn, is Bruce wants him to shoot his shot, wants him to shoot, and gives him the freedom to shoot. And he does that with all of his guys. It's a big part of this flow of the basketball game. It's a big part of Auburn. It's a big part of what Bruce does. And it's huge. It's so huge. We're going to go ahead and do player of the game. This is going to be a quick podcast. It is really late. But quick thing, Auburn is now back to a 2-game lead in the SEC race for the SEC championship, as they are 12-1 after Tennessee beat Kentucky on Tuesday night. Auburn goes back to a 2-game lead. They lead both Tennessee and Kentucky by 2 games, with Tennessee still on their schedule later on. So 4 more wins for Auburn, and you've got the outright SEC championship. 3 more, and you've got a guaranteed tie, but you would need a Kentucky or Tennessee loss for that to happen, and you could be one of them with going to Knoxville next Saturday. But I'm going to go ahead and do player of the game. I think there's 3 guys that I just named earlier. Look, Jabari's the player of the game. 7 of 10 from 3, 31 points. First Auburn freshman to do that since 2005, Tony Douglas. Very few 6'10 guys are going to do that ever. Enjoy him while you've got him. He's an incredible talent, and he will be making a lot of money to play basketball next year. He's very good at it. I think you could easily say Walker Kessler. I think Walker has improved his draft stock high enough. I didn't think that was near possible from what he's been able to do. 22 points, 7 rebounds, 7 blocks. That's an incredible game for Walker Kessler, and we've kind of come to expect those incredible games, especially as of recent. Wendell Green, another great game off the bench, coming off of kind of a shooting slump for him, as well as Jabari, and kind of a team-wide shooting slump. 12 points, 2 of 5 from 3, had 9 assists and 7 rebounds. 3 rebounds, 1 assist shy of a triple-double. I bet he gets it soon. He's been so close in so many games. I bet he could get over that hump and have guys like Walker and Jabari on that team as well. And Zepp and KD, if they stay out of foul trouble, that's big. I'll quickly talk about Allen Flanigan for just a second. Look, Allen really struggled in this game, committed 6 turnovers. I think a problem with Allen right now, he wants to be that scorer that he was last year, and it's not going to fit on this team with this roster. And that's understandable. I also don't think he trusts his Achilles as much as he probably should, but that's a natural, human thing, an athlete thing, where, you tear your Achilles, you're immovable. You're completely immobile for 6-7 months after surgery. That's going to be hard to trust your Achilles, especially with that explosive Allen that we saw last year. It's going to be hard to get back to that. But some really poor decisions on Allen's part last night. He did have the big alley-oop dunk from Wendell. That was incredible momentum. The place went crazy during that. That was good to see. But not a lot of bright spots for Allen. I hope to see that change. I really do. I think Jabari is easy to play her game. Dad thinks the same thing. I really don't know why you can pick between those 3, but he's the guy. He's the guy. And he has a chance to be All-American, as he should, as well as Walker Kessler. I think Wendell Green has a chance to be considered for SEC Sixth Man of the Year, which is, huge. You're going to have 2 SEC All First Teamers. You might have the Sixth Man of the Year and the Defensive Player of the Year, which is incredible. It's just incredible. But yeah, Jabari's the player of the game. So we'll go ahead and move on from that. The big win over Vandy improves us to 12-1 in SEC play, 24-2 in overall, as Auburn looks ahead and will be taking on the Florida Gators on Saturday, February 19th at 1 p.m. Central Time in Gainesville as they go on the road. Look, Auburn hasn't won in Gainesville since 1996. Bruce Pearl's 0-4 there as an Auburn Tiger. That's a tough place to go and win. That's a really solid Florida team. I like Mike White. I like what he's got going on there. I really like Colin Castleton, what they have with him, and he's coming back after injury. They've had some weird losses, some weird wins. They got blown out at Rupp. They had a home overtime win against Ole Miss. It's been a really weird season for Florida. But you saw the great match. I'm really interested to see a part 2 of that great matchup between Walker and Colin Castleton. As that'll be Saturday. And then you look ahead of the rest of the schedule with a 2-game lead in the SEC. And then you got Ole Miss coming next Wednesday to Auburn. And then Auburn going to Knoxville to play the Tennessee Volunteers that next Saturday. And then that next Wednesday going to Mississippi State. And then South Carolina at home on March 5th for the last game of the regular season. The schedule's setting up really good. Really nice for Auburn as we look forward to it. If you want to find me on Twitter, respond to anything that I've said in this 20-something minutes that I've been going here. Reach out to me, talk to me during the games. I'm going to start tweeting a lot more. I know Dad tweets a lot during the game. You can find him on Twitter, IAMCTO. You can find me on Twitter at Gray Oldenburg, or you can find me on Instagram at GrayO21. Until later on this weekend or early next week, we get to discuss the Auburn-Florida game. War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.